I never thought installing a heated walkway system would nearly land me in the middle of a criminal case. But that's exactly what happened when Patricia Drummond decided my property upgrades were somehow her business. It was a brutally cold February morning in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and I was standing in my driveway watching the installation crew finish up the radiant heating system I'd spent months researching. My name is Quentin Quincy, and after 32 years of shoveling snow and dealing with icy walkways, I'd finally saved enough to install this beauty. The system ran underneath my driveway and front walkway, melting snow and ice automatically. No more 3 a.m. wake-up calls to clear the driveway before work. No more salt stains on my car. And most importantly, no more worrying about my elderly mother slipping when she visited. The installation had taken 4 days, and every single one of those days, I'd noticed Patricia watching from her living room window across the street. Patricia was the president of our homeowners association, a position she wielded like a weapon rather than a responsibility. She was 53 years old with that aggressive blonde bob haircut that seemed mandatory for women who enjoyed making other people miserable. I'd had minimal contact with her since moving into the Riverside Meadows subdivision 3 years ago, and I'd considered that a blessing. "All finished, Mr. Quincy," said the lead installer, a friendly guy named Mike who'd been incredibly professional throughout the entire process. "Here's your remote control. You can set schedules, adjust the temperature, and monitor the system from anywhere using the app on your phone. But this physical remote is great for quick adjustments." He handed me a sleek black device about the size of a garage door opener with a small digital screen. Mike spent the next 15 minutes walking me through all the features while his crew packed up their equipment. The remote could control zones, set timers, and even had a sensor that would automatically activate the system when snow was detected. It was honestly one of the coolest pieces of technology I'd ever owned, and I was practically giddy thinking about not having to shovel anymore. "The app is already installed on your phone and everything is synced," Mike continued. "But keep this remote somewhere safe. It's paired specifically to your system, and while we can reprogram a new one if needed, it's a hassle and costs about $200. I thanked him and the crew, handed over the final payment, and watched them drive away. The sun was starting to set, casting orange light across the snow-covered neighborhood. I was admiring the clean lines of my new heated walkway, already imagining the convenience it would bring, when I heard the sharp click of heels on pavement. Patricia was marching across the street toward my house, her face already twisted into that pinched expression she seemed to wear permanently. She was wearing a cream-colored coat that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment, and carrying a leather-bound notebook that I'd seen at HOA meetings. Nothing good ever came from that notebook. "Quentin," she called out, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. "We need to discuss this unauthorized construction project immediately." I took a deep breath, already feeling my good mood evaporating. "Hello, Patricia. What can I help you with?" She stopped at the edge of my driveway, looking down at the heated walkway with obvious disapproval. "You didn't submit an architectural review application for this project. You know very well that any external modifications require HOA approval before construction begins." I'd actually anticipated this conversation and had prepared for it. "I checked the HOA bylaws thoroughly, Patricia. Heated driveways and walkways fall under the same category as underground sprinkler systems. They don't require pre-approval because there's no visible external structure being added. The heating elements are completely underground, and the surface looks identical to what was here before. In fact, the installers match the concrete exactly." Patricia's jaw clenched. That's your interpretation. I interpret it differently. It's not really open to interpretation, I said, trying to keep my voice calm and reasonable. I have emails from our HOA attorney confirming this interpretation from 2 years ago when the Hendersons installed their heated driveway 3 streets over. Would you like me to forward those to you? Her face flushed slightly. I could tell she hadn't expected me to have done my homework. That doesn't change the fact that you should have informed the board of your intentions. It's common courtesy. The bylaws don't require courtesy notifications, Patricia. They require formal applications for specific types of modifications, which this doesn't fall under. I followed all the rules. The system is completely up to code, permitted by the city, and inspected by licensed professionals. She stared at me for a long moment, and I could practically see her searching for another angle of attack. Her eyes landed on the remote control I was still holding in my hand. "What's that device?" she demanded. "It's the control remote for the heating system." "Why?" Patricia's expression shifted into something I couldn't quite read. "These types of systems can interfere with neighborhood infrastructure. Wi-Fi signals, garage door openers, even pacemakers in some cases. That device needs to be evaluated by the HOA for safety compliance." I almost laughed. "It's a low-frequency radio controller, Patricia. It has about a 30-foot range and doesn't interfere with anything. It's FCC certified. See the label right here." I showed her the small certification sticker on the back of the remote. "Nevertheless, I need to inspect it. HOA regulations give me the authority to verify that all electronic devices used on properties are compliant with community standards." Now I did laugh. "That's absolutely not true. You have zero authority to inspect my personal property, especially something that controls a system entirely on my own land. And there's no such regulation in our HOA bylaws. I've read them cover to cover multiple times." Patricia's face was getting redder. "You're being deliberately difficult. I'm trying to ensure neighborhood safety, and you're being selfish and uncooperative." "I'm being neither. I'm protecting my rights as a homeowner. You're welcome to review any documentation about the system, but you have no right to confiscate or inspect my personal property." She took a step closer, and her voice dropped to something almost threatening. "You're making a big mistake here, Quentin. You don't want me as an enemy. I can make your life very difficult in this neighborhood." "Is that a threat?" I asked, pulling out my phone and opening the voice recorder app. "Because I'm happy to document this conversation and send it to the HOA board and our association attorney." Patricia's eyes widened when she saw my phone, and she took a step back. "I'm simply explaining reality. People who don't cooperate with the HOA find themselves facing increased scrutiny. Every blade of grass gets measured. Every paint chip gets examined. Every single possible violation gets documented and fined. So you're saying you'll retaliate against me for exercising my rights as a homeowner?" I kept my phone up and recording. She realized she'd said too much. "I'm saying nothing of the sort. I'm leaving now, but this conversation isn't over." She turned sharply and walked back across the street to her house, her heels clicking aggressively against the pavement. I stopped the recording and saved it to my cloud storage. Something told me I was going to need documentation of every interaction with Patricia from this point forward. I went inside, made myself dinner, and tried to enjoy the satisfaction of my new heated walkway system, but the encounter had left a sour taste in my mouth. The next morning, I woke up to 6 inches of fresh snow. It was exactly the scenario I'd installed the system for. I grabbed my coffee, pulled up the app on my phone, and activated the heating system from my bedroom. By the time I finished my shower and got dressed, I could see through my bedroom window that my driveway and walkway were completely clear, while every other house on the street had snow-covered surfaces. It was glorious. I was heading out to my car when I noticed Patricia outside her house, shovel in hand, staring at my clear driveway with an expression that could only be described as fury. I waved cheerfully and got in my car, feeling petty and not caring one bit. Work that day was busy. I'm a project manager for a commercial construction firm, and we had a major deadline approaching on a downtown hotel renovation. I barely had time to think about the HOA situation until I got home that evening and found a violation notice stuck to my front door. The notice claimed I was in violation of Section 12.4 of the HOA bylaws regarding unauthorized electronic emissions from residential properties. The fine was $500, with an additional $250 per day until the violation was corrected. I stood there in disbelief, reading the notice 3 times to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. Section 12.4 didn't say anything remotely close to what Patricia was claiming. That section dealt with satellite dishes and outdoor antenna placement. It had nothing to do with heating systems or electronic emissions. I immediately called my neighbor, Trevor Martinez, who served on the HOA board. Trevor was a reasonable guy who'd been just as frustrated with Patricia's power trips as I was. "Trevor, it's Quentin. Did you approve a violation notice for my heated walkway?" There was a pause. "What? No, what are you talking about?" I read him the notice. "This is dated today and has Patricia's signature as HOA president, but there's no co-signature from another board member, which I'm pretty sure is required for fines over $200. "You're absolutely right," Trevor said, sounding angry. "She needs board approval for fines that size. And that section she's citing has nothing to do with heating systems. Quentin, this is completely fraudulent. She's making up violations. What do I do? First, don't pay it. Second, write a formal rebuttal and send it to all board members. I'll call an emergency board meeting." This is beyond inappropriate. Patricia has been pushing boundaries for months, but this is outright fabrication of violations. We can remove her as president for this. I thanked Trevor and spent the next hour writing a detailed rebuttal, including citations from the actual HOA bylaws, copies of the permits for my heating system, the email chain with the HOA attorney about the Hendersons' heated driveway, and photos of the violation notice. I sent it to all 5 board members and copied our HOA attorney. The attorney called me within 30 minutes. Her name was Gloria Sanders, and she sounded both concerned and professionally irritated. "Mr. Quincy, thank you for sending this. I've reviewed your documentation, and you're absolutely correct. This violation notice is baseless and appears to be retaliatory. The section cited doesn't apply to your situation, and Miss Drummond doesn't have the authority to issue fines of this amount without board approval. I'm going to send her a cease and desist letter tonight." "What if she doesn't stop?" I asked. "Then we'll discuss legal options. The HOA board has the authority to remove her as president, and if her behavior continues, you would have grounds for a harassment lawsuit. But let's hope it doesn't come to that. Sometimes people just need a firm legal reminder of boundaries." I went to bed that night feeling somewhat better, though I had a nagging feeling Patricia wasn't going to back down easily. I was right. 3 days later, Trevor called me early in the morning before I'd even left for work. "Quentin, I wanted to give you a heads up. Patricia held what she's calling an executive meeting last night without informing the rest of the board. She claims she has the authority to do this under emergency provisions. She's doubling down on the violations against you and is now claiming your heating system is causing interference with her garage door opener. That's ridiculous. First of all, my remote has a 30-foot range and her house is at least 150 feet away. Second, hundreds of thousands of these systems are installed across the country without any interference issues. I know, man. We're calling a full board meeting for tomorrow night. Can you attend to present your side? Absolutely. The next evening, I arrived at the community center where HOA meetings were held, carrying a folder full of documentation. The meeting room was more crowded than usual. Apparently, word had spread about the conflict, and other homeowners were curious about the drama. Patricia sat at the head table, looking smugly confident. The other 4 board members sat with varying expressions of discomfort and irritation. I recognized Trevor, along with Margaret Chen, Donald Yates, and Ruth Parsons. They were all reasonable people who took their board responsibilities seriously, unlike Patricia, who seemed to view the position as an opportunity for power and control. The meeting started with standard business, approvals of previous minutes, budget discussions, and a few minor maintenance issues. Then Trevor moved to add my situation to the agenda. We need to address the violation notices issued to Quentin Quincy regarding his heated walkway system, Trevor said formally. These notices were issued without board approval, cite inapplicable bylaw sections, and were sent despite legal counsel's opinion that no violation exists. Patricia's face tightened. I have the authority as president to issue emergency violations when I determine a threat to community safety or property values exists. What emergency? Margaret asked, flipping through her copy of the documentation I'd submitted. Mr. Quincy obtained all proper permits, had the work inspected by city officials, and the system is identical to one approved by this board 2 years ago. The interference issue is new information, Patricia said. His device is interfering with my garage door opener. That's a safety issue. Can you prove that? Donald asked. Has the interference been documented? Have you had a technician examine your garage door opener? Patricia hesitated. I don't need a technician. I know what I'm experiencing. That's not sufficient evidence to fine a homeowner $750, Ruth said firmly. We need actual documentation of interference, and frankly, given the distance between your properties and the specifications of Mr. Quincy's system, interference seems highly unlikely. I raised my hand. May I speak? Trevor nodded. Go ahead, Quentin. I stood up. I'm happy to have an independent technician examine both my system and Patricia's garage door opener to definitively prove there's no interference. I'll even pay for it. But I think we all know that's not really what this is about. Patricia opposed my heated walkway from the beginning. She's using her position to retaliate against me for installing something she personally disapproves of, even though it's completely within my rights as a homeowner and complies with all HOA regulations. Several homeowners in the audience nodded. I continued. I have documentation showing that Patricia threatened me with increased scrutiny if I didn't cooperate with her demands to inspect my personal property. I have this conversation recorded. She told me she could make my life difficult and that people who don't cooperate with her find themselves facing constant violations. That's a lie. Patricia stood up abruptly. You're twisting my words. I was simply trying to do my job. Then you won't mind if I play the recording. I pulled out my phone. The room went very quiet. Patricia looked panicked. Board meetings aren't the place for personal disputes. This is inappropriate. I agree it's inappropriate, Gloria Sanders said from the back of the room. I hadn't noticed the HOA attorney arrive, but I was glad she was there. Which is why I've advised the board that these violation notices should be voided immediately and that Miss Drummond should issue a formal apology to Mr. Quincy. I'm not apologizing for doing my job. Patricia's voice was getting shrill. You're not doing your job, Trevor said quietly. You're abusing your position. I'm calling for a vote to void the violations and fines issued to Mr. Quincy. All in favor. 4 hands went up. Only Patricia's hand stayed down. Motion carries. Quentin, the violations are voided and you owe nothing. Patricia, consider this an official warning. Any future violations you issue need to be legitimate and need board approval for fines over $200. Are we clear? Patricia gathered her things with shaking hands. Her face was bright red and I could see tears of anger in her eyes. This is a complete betrayal. I have worked tirelessly for this community and this is how you treat me. Fine. I see how it is. She stormed out of the meeting room, leaving uncomfortable silence in her wake. The meeting continued with other business, but I barely paid attention. I felt relieved but also uneasy. Something told me this wasn't over. I was right, but I couldn't have predicted how far Patricia would go. The following week was quiet. I didn't see Patricia around the neighborhood, though her car was in her driveway, so I knew she was home. My heated walkway system continued to work flawlessly, and I was enjoying the convenience immensely. My mother had visited twice, and she was thrilled that she could walk to my front door safely without worrying about ice. Then came the Saturday that changed everything. I'd gone to the grocery store that morning, a routine trip for weekly supplies. I was gone maybe 90 minutes. When I pulled into my driveway, I noticed immediately that something was wrong. My front door was slightly ajar and I knew for certain I'd locked it when I left. My heart started racing. I sat in my car for a moment, trying to decide what to do. Was someone still inside? Should I go in or call the police? I decided calling the police was the smart move. I dialed 911 and explained the situation to the dispatcher. Stay in your vehicle and stay on the line, sir. We're sending officers to your location now. 2 police cars arrived within 5 minutes. I gave the officers my keys and explained that I'd locked the door when I left and found it open when I returned. They entered my house with weapons drawn, clearing each room. After a few minutes, one officer came back out and waved me over. The house is clear. No one's inside now, but someone definitely was. Can you come in and see if anything is missing? I walked through my house with my stomach in knots. My living room looked untouched, same with the kitchen and dining room. My bedroom seemed fine at first glance, but then I noticed my nightstand drawer was open. I always kept it closed. This drawer was closed when I left, I told the officer, whose name tag read Officer James Pritchard. He was maybe 40 years old with a calm, professional demeanor that I found reassuring. What do you keep in there? He asked, pulling out a notepad. Just basic stuff. Phone charger, some papers, my passport, and... I felt my stomach drop. My heated walkway remote. It's gone. Officer Pritchard looked confused. You're what? I explained about the heated walkway system and the remote control, including its value and the fact that it was specifically programmed to my system. Without that remote, I can still control the system through my phone app, but the remote is convenient and costs about $200 to replace. Plus, whoever has it could turn my system on and off, running up my electricity bill or causing the walkway to ice over unexpectedly. So there's both a financial and a safety concern with this theft, Officer Pritchard said, writing notes. Yes, and I think I know who took it. I explained the entire situation with Patricia Drummond, the HOA conflict, her threats, and the recent board meeting where she'd been effectively reprimanded. Officer Pritchard listened carefully, and I could see his expression grow more serious as I talked. That's a pretty clear pattern of escalating harassment, he said. Do you have any direct evidence that Miss Drummond entered your home? No, but she's the only person who would have a motive to take specifically that remote control. Nothing else is missing. My TV is still here. My laptop is still on my desk. They didn't even take the cash I keep in my sock drawer for emergencies. Just the remote. The fact that only one specific item was taken does support a targeted theft rather than a random burglary, Officer Pritchard agreed. Let me get our forensics team out here to dust for prints, and we'll go talk to Miss Drummond. Over the next 2 hours, I watched as crime scene technicians dusted my front door, door frame, and nightstand for fingerprints. They found several clear prints on the nightstand that definitely weren't mine based on size and pattern. They also found prints on the front door handle that looked promising. Officer Pritchard returned with his partner, Officer Sarah Chen. Mr. Quincy, we spoke with Miss Drummond. She denies being anywhere near your house today and claims she was home all morning. However, she seemed extremely nervous during questioning, and when we asked if she would consent to us searching her property, she refused and said we'd need a warrant. Isn't that her right? I asked. Absolutely, Officer Chen said. But in our experience, innocent people generally don't have a problem with allowing searches when they have nothing to hide. Her refusal, combined with the clear motive and pattern of harassment, gives us reasonable suspicion to pursue this further. We're going to check if any of your neighbors have security cameras that might have captured someone approaching your house. Actually, I said, remembering suddenly, I have a Ring doorbell. I installed it 6 months ago. I can pull up the footage right now. I couldn't believe I'd forgotten about it. I quickly opened the Ring app on my phone and scrolled back to the time period when I was gone. And there it was, clear as day. At approximately 10:15, Patricia Drummond had walked up my driveway, looked around nervously, and approached my front door. She pulled something out of her purse that looked like lock picks. It took her about 3 minutes of fumbling, but she managed to get my door open. She disappeared inside for about 7 minutes, then emerged with something small in her hand that she quickly shoved into her purse. She pulled my front door closed and walked briskly back across the street to her house. "Oh my God," I said, turning the phone to show the officers. She actually did it. She broke into my house and stole my remote. Officer Pritchard and Officer Chen watched the footage, their expressions grim. "That's clear evidence of breaking and entering plus theft," Officer Pritchard said. "Mr. Quincy, can you send that video to this email address?" He handed me a card. "We're going to go arrest Miss Drummond right now. Really, right now." I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and disbelief. "Yes, sir, we have clear video evidence of her committing a crime. That's more than sufficient for an arrest. We'll also be getting a warrant to search her property to recover your stolen item." I sent the video to the email address while the officers called for backup. Within 10 minutes, 4 police cars were parked on our quiet suburban street, drawing stares from neighbors who were coming out of their houses to see what was happening. I watched from my front yard as Officer Pritchard, Officer Chen, and 2 other officers approached Patricia's house. Officer Pritchard rang the doorbell, and after a moment, Patricia opened the door. I couldn't hear what was being said, but I could see Patricia's face go pale. She shook her head vigorously and then appeared to try to close the door, but Officer Chen put her foot in the doorway. There was more talking, and then Officer Pritchard pulled out handcuffs. Patricia started yelling loud enough that I could hear her from across the street, though I couldn't make out specific words. Officer Chen took her arm, and together the officers turned Patricia around and handcuffed her. Even from a distance, I could see she was crying and screaming. They walked her to one of the police cars and put her in the back seat. The whole neighborhood was watching now. Trevor came jogging over from his house 2 doors down. "Dude, what the hell is happening?" he asked, staring at the scene. I explained everything, showing him the Ring doorbell footage on my phone. His eyes got wider and wider as he watched. "She actually broke into your house. That's insane. I knew she was vindictive, but this is criminal. Like, actually criminal." "Yeah," I said, still processing it all myself. "The officers said they're going to get a warrant to search her house for the remote." Officer Pritchard walked back over to us. "Mr. Quincy, we're taking Miss Drummond to the county jail for booking. She'll be charged with breaking and entering, theft, and possession of burglary tools, those lock picks she used. A judge will set bail, probably sometime tomorrow since it's Saturday. We're getting a warrant now to search her residence, but that might take a few hours. Are you willing to come down to the station later to give a formal statement, of course, whatever you need? We'll call you when we're ready, probably in about 2 or 3 hours." I went back inside my house, my mind spinning. I called my mother to tell her what happened, and she was horrified. "That woman came into your house. Oh my God, Quentin, I'm coming over." "Mom, you don't need to do that. I'm fine. I'm coming over anyway. I'll bring dinner." There was no arguing with her when she used that tone. I spent the next hour changing the locks on my doors. I'd been meaning to do it anyway since I bought the house with the original lock still installed, but this incident made it an immediate priority. My mother arrived with enough food to feed 6 people, fussing over me the whole time. We were eating when Officer Chen called to say they were ready for my statement. Mom insisted on coming with me to the police station, which was actually comforting, though I'd never admit it out loud. The police station in Grand Rapids was busy for a Saturday evening. I gave my formal statement to Officer Chen, going through the entire timeline from the heated walkway installation to the HOA conflict to finding my door open and discovering the remote was missing. I showed her all my documentation, including the recordings of Patricia's threats, the fraudulent violation notices, and the Ring doorbell footage. "This is one of the clearest cut cases I've seen in a while," Officer Chen said. "The video evidence is ironclad. Miss Drummond's attorney is going to have a very hard time arguing against this. Oh, and I wanted to let you know, we executed the search warrant at her house about an hour ago. We found your remote in her bedroom nightstand, along with a notebook where she'd apparently been keeping what she called a violation diary on you. She was documenting every time you came and went, what you wore when you had visitors. It's honestly kind of disturbing." This went way beyond an HOA dispute. I felt a chill run down my spine. She was stalking me. It appears so. We're adding stalking to the charges. The prosecutor will review everything on Monday, but I think we're looking at her facing some serious consequences. Between the breaking and entering, the theft, and the documented stalking behavior, she's probably looking at jail time if convicted. My mother grabbed my hand. "This is so scary. That woman was obsessing over my son. Mrs. Quincy, I understand this is upsetting, but Mr. Quincy did everything right. He documented the harassment, he followed proper channels through the HOA, and he reported the crime immediately. Miss Drummond is the one who made a series of very poor choices, and now she's facing the consequences." We finished up at the station and drove home. I felt emotionally exhausted. The day had started so normally, just a trip to the grocery store, and had somehow ended with my HOA president in jail for breaking into my house. The next day, Sunday, was chaotic. My phone rang constantly with neighbors calling to ask what happened. The HOA board held an emergency meeting, which I attended via video call at their request. They were all stunned by the situation. "We need to remove Patricia as president immediately," Margaret said firmly. I move that we hold a vote right now to remove her from the board entirely pending the outcome of her criminal case. The vote was unanimous among the 4 remaining board members. Trevor was appointed interim president. They also voted to send a formal letter to all homeowners explaining the situation and assuring everyone that the board hadn't been aware of Patricia's criminal behavior, and that steps were being taken to ensure proper oversight of HOA leadership going forward. On Monday morning, Officer Pritchard called me. "Mr. Quincy, I wanted to update you. Miss Drummond appeared before a judge this morning for her bail hearing." The prosecutor argued that she should be held on high bail due to the stalking evidence and the fact that she poses a potential continued threat to you. The judge agreed and set bail at $50,000. Her attorney argued that was excessive, but the judge wasn't swayed. So she's still in jail, for now. She'd need to post $5,000 to a bail bondsman to get out, and apparently she's having trouble arranging that. Her husband filed for divorce yesterday, according to her attorney, and he's refusing to help with bail. So she might be sitting in county lockup until her trial unless she can scrape together the money or convince a bondsman to work with her. When's the trial? Preliminary hearing is scheduled for 2 weeks from now. The actual trial, if it goes to trial, could be several months out. But between you and me, I think her attorney is going to push for a plea deal. The evidence is overwhelming, and she's looking at potentially 3 to 5 years if convicted on all charges. 3 to 5 years. For stealing a heated walkway remote. The absurdity of it hit me. If Patricia had just left me alone, if she just accepted that I had the right to install a heating system on my own property, she'd be living her normal life right now. Instead, she was in jail facing felony charges because she'd let her need for control spiral into criminal obsession. The next 2 weeks passed in a strange blur of normalcy mixed with legal proceedings. I went to work, came home, enjoyed my heated walkway, and tried not to think too much about the fact that my neighbor had broken into my house. The lock change helped me feel more secure, and I added security cameras covering my backyard and side yard, just to be safe. The preliminary hearing arrived on a cold Wednesday morning. I'd taken the day off work to attend. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected, and there were only a handful of people present. Patricia sat at the defendant's table with her attorney, a tired-looking man in his 50s named Robert Kensington. She looked terrible, pale and thin, wearing an orange jumpsuit since she still hadn't made bail. The prosecutor, a sharp woman named Amanda Foster, presented the evidence against Patricia. The Ring doorbell footage was played on a screen for the judge, showing Patricia clearly breaking into my house. The recovered remote was entered as evidence, along with the disturbing notebook detailing Patricia's surveillance of my activities. My formal statement was read into the record, along with Officer Chen's testimony about the investigation and arrest. Patricia's attorney tried to argue that this was a civil dispute that had escalated, not a criminal matter, but Judge Raymond Walker wasn't having it. "Mr. Kensington, your client broke into someone's home using lock picks. That's not a civil dispute. That's breaking and entering. She stole property. That's theft. She kept a detailed log of the victim's movements and activities. That's stalking. These are serious criminal charges with clear evidence. I'm binding this case over for trial." Patricia started crying loud sobs that echoed in the quiet courtroom. Her attorney put a hand on her shoulder, trying to calm her down. "Your Honor," Robert Kensington said, "my client is a respected member of her community. She has no prior criminal record. She's been under extreme stress managing the homeowners association, and she made some very poor decisions, but she's not a dangerous criminal." She's a 53-year-old woman with no history of violence. We'd like to request that bail be reduced so she can await trial at home." Judge Walker looked at Patricia with an expression somewhere between sympathy and disapproval. "Miss Drummond, what possessed you to break into your neighbor's home? You're educated, you're employed, you have standing in your community. Why would you throw all that away over a heated walkway?" Patricia wiped her eyes. "I don't know, Your Honor. I just felt like he was disrespecting the neighborhood rules and I got so angry. I know it was wrong. I know I messed up. I wasn't thinking clearly." "That's quite an understatement," Judge Walker said dryly. "Miss Drummond, I'm going to reduce your bail to $20,000, which means you need to post $2,000 to a bondsman. But if you make bail, you are to have absolutely no contact with Mr. Quincy. No approaching him, no talking to him, no going near his property. If you violate that order, you'll be right back in jail. Am I clear?" "Yes, Your Honor. Thank you, Your Honor." The hearing ended and I left the courtroom feeling strange. I'd seen Patricia as this powerful, intimidating figure for so long, but in that courtroom, she just looked pathetic and broken. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Patricia made bail 2 days later. Her sister apparently helped her with the money. Trevor called to let me know she was out and to be careful. The judge gave her a no-contact order, but who knows if she'll respect it, Trevor said. "Keep your security cameras running, and if she comes near you, call the police immediately." I didn't see Patricia at all for the next several weeks. Her car would leave early in the morning and return late at night. I assumed she was staying away from the neighborhood as much as possible to avoid running into people. The gossip mill had been running overtime, and she'd gone from HOA president to neighborhood pariah in the span of a few weeks. The trial was scheduled for early May, about 3 months after the break-in. Patricia's attorney had tried to negotiate a plea deal, but the prosecutor's office wasn't offering anything Patricia was willing to accept. They wanted her to plead guilty to breaking and entering and stalking, with a recommended sentence of 18 months in prison and 3 years of probation. Patricia was apparently holding out hope that she could get the charges reduced or dismissed, so she'd rejected the offer. The trial lasted 3 days. I testified on the first day, walking the jury through the timeline of events and answering questions from both attorneys. Patricia's lawyer tried to paint me as vindictive and argued that I'd provoked Patricia by refusing to work with her on the heated walkway issue. But the prosecutor objected repeatedly, and the judge sustained most of the objections. Mr. Quincy has no obligation to get HOA approval for a heating system that falls outside the scope of HOA regulations, Amanda Foster said firmly. The defense is attempting to blame the victim for the defendant's criminal choices. The Ring doorbell footage was devastating for Patricia's defense. You could see her clearly checking to make sure no one was watching before she picked my lock. You could see her emerge with something in her hand that she quickly concealed. And the timestamp matched exactly when I was at the grocery store. The notebook was even worse. The prosecutor read several entries out loud to the jury, and they were chilling. March 8th, Target left for work at 7:15, returned at 6:30, had takeout food, lights out by 10:30. March 9th, Target's mother visited, stayed for 3 hours, they ordered pizza. March 10th, Target came home at 5, went for a run at 6, showered, visible through bathroom window, note, need to see if I can get a better view. The courtroom was silent as the prosecutor read entry after entry. Patricia had been watching me for weeks, documenting my every movement. It was invasive and disturbing. The defense tried to argue that the notebook was just Patricia being diligent in her HOA duties, documenting potential violations, but it fell flat. No one believed that. The forensic evidence from the fingerprints matched Patricia's prints to my nightstand and front door handle. The lock pick set found in her purse matched marks on my door lock. Everything pointed to her guilt. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. They found Patricia guilty on all counts: breaking and entering, theft, stalking, and possession of burglary tools. When the verdict was read, Patricia broke down sobbing again. Her sister, who'd been attending the trial, was crying too. I felt a complicated mix of relief and sadness. I was glad justice had been served, but there was no joy in watching someone's life fall apart, even someone who'd made my life difficult. Sentencing was scheduled for 2 weeks later. The prosecutor recommended 2 years in prison, followed by 3 years of supervised probation. Patricia's attorney begged for leniency, arguing that his client had already suffered enormously. She'd lost her position on the HOA board. Her reputation in the community was destroyed. Her husband had divorced her, and she'd lost her job as an office manager at a dental practice when the criminal charges became public. Judge Walker listened to both sides and then delivered his sentence. Miss Drummond, I've thought long and hard about this case. You're a first-time offender, and I do believe you acted out of misguided anger rather than malice. However, what you did was serious. You violated someone's home, their safe space. You stole from them. And perhaps most troubling, you stalked them, documenting their private activities in a way that's frankly creepy and threatening. I can't just give you a slap on the wrist for this. He paused, and the courtroom was silent. I'm sentencing you to 1 year in the county jail, followed by 4 years of supervised probation. During your probation, you are prohibited from holding any position of authority in a homeowners association or similar organization. You must complete anger management counseling and undergo a psychological evaluation. You will pay restitution to Mr. Quincy for the cost of the stolen remote, his changed locks, additional security cameras, and court costs. And you will have no contact whatsoever with Mr. Quincy for the duration of your probation. If you violate any of these terms, you'll serve the remainder of your sentence in prison. Do you understand? Patricia nodded, too overcome to speak. I hope you use your time in jail to reflect on how your need for control led you down this path, Judge Walker continued. You had a good life, Miss Drummond. You threw it away over a heated walkway. I hope you figure out why that seemed like a reasonable course of action to you, because from where I'm sitting, it makes no sense at all. Patricia was led out of the courtroom in handcuffs. I watched her go, feeling a sense of closure finally settling over me. It was over. The nightmare that had started with a simple home improvement project had finally come to an end. I left the courthouse and drove home to Riverside Meadows. The neighborhood looked peaceful in the spring sunshine. Flowers were blooming, people were out walking dogs, kids were riding bikes. It looked like the safe, quiet suburban community I'd moved to 3 years ago. Trevor was outside washing his car when I pulled up. He waved me over. How'd it go? He asked. 1 year in jail, 4 years probation, I said. Plus, she can't ever hold an HOA position again. Trevor let out a low whistle. Damn, that's serious, but I guess she earned it. Breaking into your house, stalking you, that's way beyond just being a difficult HOA president. Yeah, it's just sad, you know. All of this could have been avoided if she'd just left me alone. Some people can't handle not being in control, Trevor said, shaking his head. Patricia was like that about everything. Remember when the Johnsons wanted to paint their shutters navy instead of black, and she fought it for 6 months? She couldn't stand anyone doing anything without her approval. We talked for a few more minutes, and then I headed inside. My house felt peaceful and safe again. The security cameras gave me peace of mind, and knowing Patricia would be in jail for a year lifted a weight off my shoulders that I hadn't fully realized was there. Life slowly returned to normal over the following months. The HOA board elected Margaret Chen as the new president, and she was excellent, reasonable, and fair without being a pushover. The board also revised several policies to provide better oversight and prevent any one person from having too much unilateral power. I got my restitution payment from Patricia, about $3,000 covering the remote replacement, new locks, security cameras, and other expenses. Her attorney had worked out a payment plan where she'd pay it off over the course of her probation. My heated walkway continued to work perfectly. Every time it snowed, I'd come outside to a clear driveway and walkway, and I'd feel a moment of satisfaction knowing I'd made the right decision to install it. That satisfaction was no longer tinged with anxiety about HOA retaliation. One unexpected positive outcome of the whole situation was that several other neighbors decided to install heated walkway systems too. The Johnsons did theirs in July, and the Martinez family started their installation in August. By the end of the year, 6 houses on our street had heated walkways, and no one gave anyone grief about it. The HOA had clarified the rules to make it explicitly clear that underground heating systems were allowed without pre-approval, removing any ambiguity. Patricia was released from jail after serving 10 months of her 1-year sentence, getting early release for good behavior. I heard through the neighborhood grapevine that she'd moved to Lansing to live with her sister. She was working as a receptionist at a hotel and keeping a low profile. I hoped she was getting the therapy Judge Walker had mandated, and that she was figuring out whatever had driven her to such extreme behavior. I never saw her again. She followed the no-contact order, and as far as I know, she never came back to Grand Rapids. Her house sold about 6 months after she was released from jail, bought by a nice young couple with twins who were friendly and normal and didn't care at all about my heated walkway. Sometimes on winter mornings, when I'm drinking my coffee and watching my driveway automatically clear itself of snow, I think about how a simple home improvement project turned into such a bizarre and dramatic saga. I think about how Patricia's need for control and her inability to accept boundaries led her down a path that cost her everything: her marriage, her job, her reputation, her freedom. It serves as a reminder to me about the importance of respecting other people's rights and property, about the dangers of letting anger and ego drive decisions, and about how quickly things can spiral out of control when someone loses perspective. Patricia probably woke up the morning she broke into my house thinking she was justified, thinking she was protecting the neighborhood or teaching me a lesson. She probably didn't think of herself as a criminal. But that's what she became the moment she picked my lock and entered my home without permission. The whole experience also taught me the importance of documentation. If I hadn't recorded Patricia's threats, if I hadn't had that Ring doorbell footage, the situation could have played out very differently. It would have been my word against hers, and who knows if the police would have pursued charges or if a jury would have convicted without that clear evidence. Now, 2 years later, life in Riverside Meadows is peaceful. The HOA functions properly, handling actual community needs rather than serving as a vehicle for one person's power trips. My heated walkway continues to work flawlessly, saving me hours of shoveling and giving me peace of mind about my mother's visits. And I have a story that people don't quite believe until I show them the Ring doorbell footage of a HOA president breaking into my house to steal a heated walkway remote. It's not the kind of story I ever imagined having, but it's mine. It's a reminder that even in quiet suburban neighborhoods, drama can erupt from the most unexpected places. It's a cautionary tale about what happens when authority goes to someone's head, and they forget that their role is to serve the community, not to rule over it. The heated walkway remote that started it all now sits in a locked safe in my closet when I'm not using it. It's probably overkill, but after everything that happened, I'm not taking any chances. The remote itself has become almost symbolic to me, a representation of my right to make decisions about my own property without unreasonable interference. My mother still brings up the incident occasionally, usually when she's visiting and walking up my perfectly clear, heated pathway. "I still can't believe that woman went to jail over this," she'll say, shaking her head, and I can't really blame her for her continued disbelief. It does sound absurd when you say it out loud. A HOA president went to jail for stealing a heated walkway remote, but that's not really what she went to jail for, not entirely. She went to jail for breaking into someone's home, for stalking them, for letting her need for control override her common sense and her respect for the law. The remote was just the object of her obsession, the thing she fixated on, as representing everything she thought was wrong with my refusal to bend to her authority. In the end, the justice system worked the way it was supposed to. Patricia committed crimes, clear and documented crimes, and she faced consequences proportional to her actions. The story could have ended much worse. She could have escalated further. She could have done something violent. I'm grateful it stopped where it did, with property theft rather than something more serious. These days, when new neighbors move into the subdivision, someone usually ends up telling them the story of Patricia and the heated walkway remote. It's become part of neighborhood lore, a cautionary tale told at block parties and HOA meetings. This is why we have checks and balances now, Margaret Chen explained at a recent meeting when discussing HOA procedures. We learned some hard lessons about what can happen when power isn't properly distributed and oversight isn't maintained. The story has even spread beyond our neighborhood. A local news station did a piece on it, focusing on HOA overreach and the importance of knowing your rights as a homeowner. I was interviewed, though I kept it brief. I wasn't interested in becoming known as that guy whose HOA president broke into his house. But I did want people to understand that HOA regulations have limits, that homeowners have rights, and that documentation and proper channels are crucial when dealing with disputes. I've been contacted by several people over the past 2 years who are facing their own HOA battles. I always give them the same advice. Know your bylaws, document everything, stay calm and professional, and don't be afraid to stand up for your rights when you're in the right. Most HOA disputes don't escalate to criminal behavior, thankfully, but the principles remain the same. Knowledge and documentation are your best defenses against overreach. As I sit here now, on a cold December evening, watching snow fall outside my window and knowing my walkway is already clearing itself, I feel a deep sense of contentment. I have a home I love, a neighborhood that's learned and grown from a difficult experience, and a heated walkway that makes my life measurably better every winter. The price I paid in stress and drama was high, but ultimately, standing up for my rights was worth it. The whole experience has made me more aware of local governance and community involvement. I attend every HOA meeting now, not because I'm worried about overreach, but because I've learned how important it is for homeowners to be engaged and informed. Margaret has been an excellent president, but I've seen firsthand how quickly things can go wrong when residents are disengaged, and one person accumulates too much unchecked power. I've also become something of an advocate for clear, reasonable HOA policies. I served on a committee last year that revised several ambiguous sections of our bylaws, making them clearer and more homeowner-friendly while still maintaining reasonable community standards. It's about balance, something Patricia never understood. Communities need some level of standards and coordination, but they also need to respect individual property rights and personal freedom. Looking back on everything, I don't regret installing the heated walkway, not for a second. I regret that Patricia responded the way she did. I regret that she threw away her life over something so trivial. But I don't regret exercising my rights as a homeowner to improve my property in a legal and reasonable way. Standing up to unreasonable demands and unjust treatment isn't just about the specific issue at hand. It's about establishing boundaries and refusing to be bullied, even when the bully has a title and perceived authority. The heated walkway has been worth every penny. Beyond the practical benefits, it represents something bigger to me now. It represents the right to make decisions about my own home. It represents the importance of standing firm when you're in the right. And it represents the idea that no one, not even someone with authority in the community, has the right to violate your property, your privacy, or your rights. On particularly snowy days, when my entire driveway and walkway are completely clear while everyone else on the street is out shoveling, neighbors often give me friendly grief about it. "Show off," they'll joke, and I'll laugh and offer to send them the installer's contact information. Several of them have taken me up on it, and there's something satisfying about seeing the heated walkway trend spread through the neighborhood, a quiet rebellion against the old regime that tried to stop it. The incident taught everyone in Riverside Meadows important lessons. For the homeowners, it was a lesson about the importance of engaged oversight and clear regulations. For the HOA board, it was a lesson about accountability and the limits of authority. And for me personally, it was a lesson about the importance of standing up for yourself, documenting everything, and knowing when to involve law enforcement. In quiet moments, I sometimes wonder what Patricia thinks about now. Does she regret her choices? Does she understand how badly she overreacted? Has she gained any insight into what drove her to such extreme behavior? I hope so. I hope her time in jail and her mandatory therapy helped her work through whatever was going on in her head that made breaking into a neighbor's house over a heated walkway seem like a reasonable course of action. I don't hate Patricia. I feel sorry for her, honestly. She had what seemed like a good life, and she destroyed it because she couldn't handle someone disagreeing with her. That's a tragedy, really. Her story is a cautionary tale about ego, control, and the importance of keeping perspective. A heated walkway remote isn't worth going to jail over. A homeowner installing a legal home improvement isn't worth obsessing over. But Patricia couldn't see that until it was far too late. The legal system did its job, holding her accountable while also showing some mercy. 1 year in jail is serious, but it's not the 3 to 5 years she could have gotten. The judge recognized that she needed consequences, but also that she wasn't a dangerous criminal, just someone who'd made catastrophically bad decisions. The probation terms, especially the prohibition on holding HOA positions and the mandatory counseling, seem designed to prevent recurrence and address the underlying issues. As for me, life goes on. I go to work, come home, spend time with friends and family, and enjoy my home. The drama of 2 years ago has faded into memory, though the changes it prompted, both in the HOA and in my own awareness, remain. My house is more secure now. The neighborhood is better governed, and I'm more informed and engaged as a homeowner. The heated walkway remote that caused so much trouble sits in my safe, a small device that became the catalyst for upheaval. When I take it out to adjust settings or show someone the technology, I'm always struck by how ordinary it looks. It's just a black remote control with some buttons and a small screen. Nothing about it suggests the drama it inspired. But objects don't cause drama. People do. The remote was just a remote. Patricia's reaction to it was the problem. Every winter, when that first snow falls and I watch my system automatically activate, clearing my walkway while I sit inside with hot coffee, I feel grateful. Grateful for the technology that makes my life easier. Grateful for the legal system that protected my rights. Grateful for neighbors and a HOA board that learned from what happened and made positive changes. And yes, even grateful for the experience itself, as stressful as it was, because it taught me valuable lessons about standing up for myself and the importance of proper documentation. The story of Patricia and the heated walkway remote has become part of my personal history, a bizarre chapter that I'll probably be telling at parties for the rest of my life. It's the kind of story that sounds made up, that makes people shake their heads in disbelief, but it's all too real. Sometimes truth is stranger than fiction, and sometimes a simple home improvement project can expose the fault lines in a community and lead to criminal charges. In the end, justice was served, lessons were learned, and life moved on. Patricia paid the price for her crimes and hopefully gained some insight into her behavior. I got to keep my heated walkway and learned valuable lessons about documentation and standing firm on principle. The neighborhood got better governance and clearer rules. And everyone got a story they'll be talking about for years to come. As I finish writing this account of everything that happened, snow is falling outside again. My heated walkway is doing its job perfectly, melting the snow as it lands. In the morning, while my neighbors are out with their shovels, I'll walk easily to my car across a clear, dry surface. It's a small luxury, but after everything it costs to defend my right to have it, I savor it every single time. The heated walkway remote that nearly cost Patricia her freedom now sits safely stored. A reminder that sometimes standing up for your rights comes with unexpected consequences, both for you and for those who try to take those rights away.